Just months ago, the idea of Japan aligning itself with America's rivals would have been dismissed as pure conspiracy. But now, whispers have turned into major headlines. Leading media outlets are openly discussing the possibility. Japan, a G7 powerhouse and loyal U.S. partner, may be preparing to stand alongside nations challenging Western dominance. What if one of America's closest allies suddenly sided with its rivals? Imagine waking up to headlines that Japan, the bedrock of Washington's strategy in Asia, is considering joining Brics, the powerful coalition led by China and Russia. It sounds unthinkable, but this is no longer just a far-fetched rumor. It's rapidly becoming front-page news around the world. The stakes are enormous. This isn't just diplomatic drama. It threatens the bedrock of worldwide economic security. If Japan joins Brics, global markets could convulse, the strength of the US dollar might weaken, and old alliances could unravel almost overnight. In a world already battered by crises, such a realignment could send shockwaves through every continent. Why does this matter? Because if Japan really does pivot toward Brics, it could shatter the post-war order we have known for generations. The United States, Europe, and their allies have long relied on Japan as a cornerstone of global strategy, both militarily and economically. A shift by Japan would strike at the heart of these alliances, throwing the balance of power into chaos. Let's rewind the clock and uncover the pivotal events, including growing trade tensions and a sense of betrayal that brought Japan to this crossroads. Once the stuff of speculation, talk of Japan joining Brics is now a political earthquake. What changed? Why is Japan, after decades of loyalty, even thinking about siding with its rivals? The answers reveal a story of shifting loyalties, economic self-interest, and a world order on the brink of transformation. How did whispers turn into headlines? For decades, Japan has been the anchor of America's strategic playbook in Asia, bound tightly through military alliances and deeply interwoven economic ties. Washington and Tokyo have marched in lockstep, their partnership considered unbreakable by most observers. Behind the scenes, credible sources now claim that Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs is engaged in secret talks to explore Brics membership. This isn't just rumor or idle chatter. The groundwork is reportedly being laid for a move that would have been unthinkable only a short time ago. But recently, faint murmurs in obscure Japanese newspapers have erupted into global headlines. Reports first emerged in niche media outlets, hinting at Japan's interest in Brics, the group comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. What began as cautious speculation soon captured the attention of major international publications, thrusting the story into the global spotlight. But what could possibly drive Japan, a pillar of the G7, to reconsider its place in the Western world?
Japan's loyalty to America は long been taken for granted, both in economics and security. The United States has treated Japan as a reliable outpost in the Pacific and a trusted economic partner. That trust, however, has begun to show cracks in recent years.
If we underestimate the fragility of these alliances, we risk missing the quiet tremors that can lead to seismic shocks. The world as we know it, its economic systems, security arrangements, and the very order we rely on, could be far more vulnerable than we realize. To understand this dramatic shift, we have to look at the specific events and deeper frustrations that pushed Japan to the edge. What forced this loyal ally to question everything? America's message shifted to America first. Old promises of special treatment for Japan evaporated. Trump publicly dismissed Japan's status as a privileged ally, sending shockwaves through Tokyo's political and business circles. Suddenly, loyalty to Washington was being openly questioned in the halls of government and inside the boardrooms of economic giants.
Leaders faced an existential dilemma: continue absorbing economic pain in the hope that the alliance would someday pay off again, or seek new partners, and risk security guarantees that have kept the nation safe for decades. This was not just about profit and loss. It was about national identity, trust, and survival in a rapidly changing world.
Why would Japan risk everything for a new alliance? The answer begins with a deep sense of betrayal, one that shook Japan at its core. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, his administration wasted no time imposing harsh tariffs on Japanese cars, electronics, and even seafood. These measures were not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They struck directly at the heart of Japan's export-driven economy, making America's vast market a fortress guarded by new barriers. Observing the cracks in the U.S.-Japan relationship, China and Russia moved swiftly. They offered Japan enticing trade deals and technology partnerships under the Brics umbrella. Quietly, behind closed doors, Japanese officials began attending secret meetings where alternatives to the US dollar were laid out, plans to use the Chinese yuan and Russian ruble, and to bypass the global financial systems dominated by the West. For the first time, Japan was seriously considering shifting away from the very architecture of global trade that it had helped build. With such high stakes and growing momentum, one question remains: what would it actually mean for Japan and the world if the country embraced the Brics alternative? The stakes have never been higher. If Japan turns away from the United States, it risks losing American security guarantees, while America, in turn, would lose one of its most reliable partners and a crucial piece of its influence in Asia. A fracture here would not just be a loss for both countries, but a seismic shift in the world order itself. Let's explore how Japan could transform global alliances and challenge the West by stepping into the Brics circle, and what this move would mean for financial systems everywhere. Behind the scenes, leading Japanese corporations are quietly settling more deals in non-dollar currencies, using Chinese yuan and Indian rupees instead of the once unquestioned US dollar. This change signals a deeper strategy. Japan is preparing for a future where the dollar's dominance is no longer guaranteed. What happens if Japan crosses the Rubicon? The world is watching as Japan edges closer to a decision that could remake the global order. Already, Japan's export ties with Brics nations are booming. Trade with China, India, and Brazil has grown sharply in the past year, with Japanese exports to China rising by 14%, to India by 21%, and to Brazil by 18%. This isn't just a shift in numbers, it marks a turning point in Japan's economic outlook. At the same time, Japan's youth and business leaders have begun to see opportunity in the East rather than the West. Young professionals, tech startups, and university graduates now look to China, India, and Southeast Asia for partnerships and growth. The old dream of success in America or Europe is fading. The new ambition is regional, pragmatic, and distinctly Asian. But an economic pivot is only part of the story. If Japan aligns with Brics, it threatens to upend long-standing security arrangements. The U.S. military presence on Japanese soil, a pillar of Asia-Pacific stability for generations, may no longer be a given. The question of American protection suddenly hangs in the balance, leaving Japanese policymakers to weigh the risks of striking out on a new path. Public sentiment has shifted as well. Polls now show trust in the United States at its lowest point in 30 years, while support for deeper ties with Asian neighbors is rising sharply. The sense of betrayal from recent U.S. trade policies has not gone unnoticed among ordinary Japanese citizens, fueling a desire to chart a more independent future. But is Japan truly prepared to abandon its old alliances? What practical choices lie ahead for a nation caught between loyalty and self-preservation? The stakes could not be higher. This is more than a diplomatic gamble. It's a moment that could mark the decline of the American century, rewriting rules that have governed the world for generations. For millions, it means uncertainty about jobs, investments, and the very landscape of global power.
Next, let's examine the impossible decisions now facing Japan's leaders and what scenarios might unfold in the coming months.
The global implications are staggering. If Japan joins Brics, other U.S. allies may feel emboldened to reconsider their own loyalties, setting off a domino effect that could erode the U.S.-led world order. Such a move might destabilize regional security agreements, disrupt global supply chains, and trigger economic shocks that ripple through markets and households worldwide. What can we learn as the ground shifts under our feet? Japan's current debate is about far more than diplomatic chess or quick trade deals. It's a national reckoning, forcing the country to weigh its economic survival against its deepest security fears. Boardroom executives call for bold independence and new partnerships to keep Japanese industries thriving, while military officials warn that straying from old alliances could leave Japan dangerously isolated. One reality is now impossible to ignore. America's economic leverage, long anchored by the dominance of the U.S. dollar, is eroding. More and more deals are happening outside the dollar's reach, from energy to tech to raw materials. As these alternative systems grow, old rules of global commerce are being rewritten, rules that once seemed unbreakable. This tug-of-war is not unique to Japan. Around the globe, business leaders sense the tide turning. They champion diversification, eager to break free from old dependencies and shield themselves from political shocks. In contrast, security experts see new risks in every fresh handshake, fearing the loss of trusted allies and stable defense networks. All of this leaves Japan standing at a crossroads. Should it pursue true sovereignty, seeking new markets and greater independence, even if that means drifting away from traditional partners? Or does it risk national security and global standing to preserve established economic ties with the West? This is not just a Japanese dilemma. The world is watching. Japan's decision could redraw maps, shatter old alliances, and alter the future course of global power. If we fail to understand and adapt to these seismic shifts, the consequences will reach far beyond government halls and trading floors. Individuals, businesses, and even entire nations could be caught unprepared for a world transformed almost overnight. Japan's choice isn't just about trade agreements or military bases. It's about redefining its place in a rapidly changing world. As leaders in Tokyo weigh their next move, the eyes of every major capital are fixed on what happens next. Japan stands at a turning point. The world may never be the same. What we are witnessing is not just a diplomatic shuffle, but a dramatic moment that could redefine the very fabric of global alliances and economic order. For decades, Japan has been a symbol of loyalty to the West. Now, driven by a sense of betrayal and a desire for independence, it is reconsidering where its true interests lie. Are you prepared for a future that looks nothing like the past? Pay attention to these shifting tides, because understanding them may be your best defense against being blindsided by the changes ahead. The decisions made in Tokyo today will echo around the world for decades to come. If Japan decides to join Brics, the ripple effects will be felt in every corner of the globe. Financial markets may tremble, the dominance of the United States dollar could be shaken, and the security structures we once took for granted might be rewritten overnight. The nations of Brics, once outsiders to the Western Club, would welcome a G7 giant into their ranks, triggering new partnerships, alternative payment systems, and perhaps a new era of economic cooperation beyond American influence. But this is only the beginning. To truly grasp what this new world might look like, we have to examine what happens if Japan takes the leap, and who stands to win or lose in the aftermath. This is not just news from across the ocean. Your personal future, your investments, your job market, even your country's safety could be impacted by whether Japan stays loyal to its old partners or chooses a new path. For the first time in generations, the possibility of a global realignment is not a far-off theory, but a real and imminent risk. The world you know could be on the verge of dramatic transformation.